Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 31, Post-Structuralism and Postmodernism. And our topic is Baudrillard and Postmodernism. In the 1970s, Baudrillard alleged that the Marxists and their detractors both had a similar Bourgeois orientation, which was conservative. He felt that an alternative explanation was necessary. Thus, Baudrillard put forward the notion of symbolic exchange as an alternative to economic exchange. Symbolic exchange itself involves a continuous process of a gift giving and gift taking. It is clear that the symbolic exchange was beyond and opposed to the logic of late capitalism. Such symbolic exchange implies the creation of a society based on the same, but Baudrillard chose to be apolitical. He studied contemporary society and saw that it is not production but the electronic media that characterizes it. For example, TV, computers, satellites. We have moved from societies under different modes of production to a society that is more involved with the code of production. Exploitation and profit motives have given way to a domination by the signs and systems that produce them. Again, science referred to something else, but in post-modern society they become self-referential and characterized by simulations and simulacra, which are representations of any aspect of consumption. But Baudrillard, the more post-modern world is hyper-reality. Thus, media becomes more real than the reality itself and provides news, views, and events in an aggregated, skewed, and even ideological manner. Thus, the term hyper-reality. This is not without the consequences, as the real tends to be buried in the hyper-real and may ultimately be banished altogether. For Baudrillard, culture is undergoing a deep change which makes the masses more and more passive rather than increasingly rebellious. Thus, the masses encounter these changes with seeming ease, absorbing each new cultural idea or artifact. Thus, for Baudrillard, masses are not seen to be the products of media. Rather, it is media which is observed to provide these wants to masses for objects and entertainment. For Baudrillard, society is in the throes of a death culture. Thus, it is death anxiety that pushes people to try and lose this anxiety by using and abusing the consumerist culture. There is no revolutionary silver lining to Baudrillard's theory, and the problem is also that symbolic exchange societies may exist, but how to bring them about is not addressed to by Baudrillard. All in all, Baudrillard's brilliant and unusual ideas make it a clear breakaway from the ideas and artifacts of modernism. Baudrillard in deconstructing contemporary society shows just how much sociological theory has moved forward and away from the classical thought. Thus, we can see postmodernism does display certain characteristics, and we can see below just what these are. The first of these characteristics is that of postmodernism. There is a multiplicity of views, meanings, and so on. Secondly, the postmodernists are looking for polysemic and alternative meanings. Thirdly, there is a distrust of meta narratives and grand narratives as found in classical sociological theory. It also holds that since there is a multiplicity of perspectives, there will always be many truths. Thus, postmodernists regard concepts and ideas as texts which are open to interpretation. They also look for binary oppositions in the text. Further, these binary oppositions are themselves shown to be false, or at least not necessarily true. Finally, the postmodernist identifies text groups which are absent or omitted. This is regarded important to any deconstruction. Now, postmodernism is reflected in almost all areas of life, including film, TV, literature, etc., which are deeply influenced by postmodern viewpoints. Let us now turn to some postmodern aspects visible in other fields. Thus, in language, words and forms are used, and the concept of play is basic to it. Thus, play implies altering the frame which connects ideas, allowing the dropping of a metaphor. Thus, the text has a meaning which is understood or interpreted by the reader and not the author. This play or exercise is the way that the author gains some significance in the consciousness of the reader. The problem with this post-modern view about the language is very difficult to understand and is against the basis of communication, where the author communicates to the reader in as lucid a manner as possible. In literature, it is found that post-modern works is not so much opposed to modernist literature. Instead, it tends to extend it stylistically. Some post-modern literatures include David Foster Wallace and Thomas Pynchon, both of whom are critical of the vast system building of Enlightenment modernity. As you would have noticed, post-structuralism and post-modernism do have an intermeshing quality. Indeed, some authors straddled both fields. For example, Francois Lyotard. Further, structuralism tries to build models seeking out factor and pattern that are stable, which is anathema to postmodernist and rejected outright as a futile maneuver. Thus, postmodernism has retained the cultural dimension of structuralism, but has rejected the claims to its scientificity. Again, post-structuralism is a position in philosophy. It is not the name of an era, whereas postmodernism is associated with the postmodern epoch. Now let us conclude the unit. What then has postmodernism achieved? The answer is that postmodernism has turned away the shroud over the analysis and demystified both epistemological and ideological constructs. Further, a deep look at the ethnography has led to a re-examination and questioning of ethnography itself. Postmodernism and its adherents point out that sociologists should analyze the role of their own culture in the study of culture and therefore increase the sensitivity of the subject. Post-modern approaches have been criticized on several grounds. To begin with, postmodernists are against theory. This is paradoxical, since this is itself a theoretical position taken by the postmodernist. Again, the postmodernist emphasizes the illogical or non-rational aspects of a culture. Further, the postmodern concentrations on the marginal, which is itself evaluative. Then again, the stress is on the intertextuality, but they do not always follow their own advice and often treat text as standing alone. Postmodernists also put away all assessments of theory, but this does not mean that there is no means of assessment. Thus, according to postmodernists, modernism is inconsistent, but they themselves exercise it as and which way they want. Finally, the postmodernists are self-contradictory when they deny any claims of reality or truth in their own writings. Finally, there is the issue of postmodernism not having any confidence in the scientific method. But if sociology does not follow this position, then it will turn into a study of meanings rather than causes, which influence what it is to be an individual in society. Now let us wind up the session, and we have come to the end of the unit as well as book. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the self-learning podcast.